Yes, yeah, that's it. On the day I first came to this country, there was brilliant sunshine. Seagulls overhead the whole way on the ferry, which I thought was so wonderful. It had been such a long journey from the Czech border. I was tired, but I couldn't believe how beautiful it was here. It was also the first time I felt lonely. On the train and out there at sea. I was only 18 years old. I was used to people being always around, like when I'd make fun of Mama and Papa, who secretly enjoyed it, though they said they didn't. Especially Papa, who was very much older than Mama and felt more like a grandfather than a father. He grumped and huffed whenever I played tricks on him. Like, I used to creep into his study on my belly, crawling across the floor, and I would hide his glasses. He was so funny when he got cross looking for them. Where am I looking for my glasses? Glasses, he'd call. And I'd hide behind Mum giggling, which of course he heard, but pretended not to. I'd better look for them on the roof, he'd call, and he'd stomp up the stairs, his shoulders bundling against the pictures as he went. I'd give it about 20 minutes before standing in the hallway with his glasses in the iron case. I found them, Papa, I'd say. Every time you were sitting on them, he'd huff and puff, and Mama would bring him a brandy. Oh, Mama. She was such a storyteller. She and I used to sit in the window of our summer house looking out over the fields. It was just wonderful. She would tell story after story. I'm Scheherazade, she'd say. And when I've run out of stories, I'll just carry on telling them. Who knows what I'll come up with? I couldn't wait. I'd say, is that it, Mama? Are we in the land of never heard stories yet? Oh, yes, my darling, and we'll never leave. She'd point into the sky and would show me giants and swordsmen and strange women of light who vanished and appeared and sometimes were in the room with us, looking fierce, but really just wanting to be noticed and have us by their charms.
So, I've learned that it is possible to forgive. I don't think it'll happen for me. At what point would it have been likely? 10 minutes after I got on the bus that took me away from you? I could have got off the next stop and walked back to the terminus, then got on the southbound bus to our flat. And I wouldn't have been all that late. Maybe an hour or so, and it would have been possible, to pretend there was nothing wrong. You wouldn't have known my intent. You wouldn't have known that I couldn't face it. Not the baby, not the child. I couldn't face me. I couldn't face being the father I didn't want to be. It wasn't that I was giving up a career. No. I'm afraid I didn't want the room full of nappies and the stink of warm urine and having to go on endless visits to the laundrette. I didn't know anything about baby bottle milk and getting it to the right temperature. I didn't want the sneezes, sick cough, sweats, crying, all the things you're supposed to love, but I knew I could not. There. It said. I could not think of one thing I was excited about or that filled me with joy. Not one thing. I tried to imagine the birth and what I'd feel like when the nurses told me it was born. I tried to imagine you cradling the baby and asking me if I wanted to hold and not knowing whether my hand should go under the neck or the head. And what if I accidentally dropped it or held its soft bones too hard? and then being stuck with it forever, even after my death. There. I've said that too. I've never said it to anyone, but I'm saying it to you now. How can you forgive that?
Once, you asked me whether I knew why my parents sent me to England. Of course I knew, I said. I knew what was happening. Russians all over the place making trouble, starting fistfights in the street, people beginning to disappear. Like my uncle, Mama's brother who wrote music. They both did. In the spring, my mother had been so happy because she could compose what she liked. My father could teach history using books that told the truth. He was thrilled. He kept coming home saying, I can say what I like. I can get the students to think, to feel something. They thought it was going to last, both of them, until late July, and the rumours wouldn't stop. Brezhnev told the Soviet government they needed to help the oppression of their comrade communists in Prague. The people who'd supported Hitler now found it better for them to support the Soviet Union. A few academics who should have known better had their heads in the clouds, my father said. And so my mother got me ready. My grandparents had both known Jewish families who'd vanished to Treblinka in 1942. They thought it would happen again, but this time to anyone who opposed the communists. Carry 3 things, my mother had said. Music, she gave me Grandpapa's flute. Next, your clothes. And she gave me the suitcase that they'd packed in the attic for emergencies. And one more thing, this photograph. She wrote something on it and gave it to me. Put it right, she'd written. So that's what I'd carried on the train. We hoped it would be over by Christmas and the Russians would go home, but they didn't. My parents never got out.
It's tempting in the modern age to blame other people. So is that it? Did I have it thrashed into me that responsibility was to be sought after? The answer is yes. My father would chase me round the house with a shoe if I'd done something like breaking a glass or drawing on the carpet. School was a humdrum grammar backwater that believed ignoble suffering was worth celebrating. So who can I blame? In those minutes at the bus station, I could have got on the southbound bus and not north to the train. After all, I had nothing on me but my wallet, a checkbook, the clothes I stood up in. The decision I took was not mine, I could say. It belongs to the first 3 publishers I applied for work, who turned me down for inexperience, lacking drive. If even one of them had applauded my acumen, then surely I'd have been bolder at the bus station. But one did. I'd only got a job the month before. What had they seen that I didn't use? Mr. Hughes, you are clearly the most committed candidate here. Your knowledge of the US publishing market is quite splendid. I displayed my love of Dos Passos, Hemingway and Steinbeck, and talked about emerging opportunities in the post-Vietnam world. But I walked away from that too. So I can't blame anyone else. Let me see. Yes. I look into the window of the bus I shouldn't have taken. I'm your reflection, Michael Hughes. I'm paler than you, and you can see right through me, but I watch you. looking out, arms folded around your raincoat. There's no smile of release or triumph or taking the world by the scruff of the neck. I cannot see a Holden Caulfield. I do not see Jack Kerouac. Rather, I see old Jim Casey buying a ride as fast as he can away from a past he was ashamed to have lived.
You looked lost when I first saw you in the library that time. Oh, what was it? 1969, January. You didn't know what to say, but I could tell you had romantic inclinations. Ah, your eyes were lonely. Do you speak German? You asked. And I said, I could. So you asked me about Brecht, about alienation of all things, Verfremdung. I made you work for it. I understood you perfectly well, but I tested you. I pretended not to understand you. You stated it again, and you tried German for yourself. Hast du, hast die, you said, Allemand. Oh God, that's what made me laugh, because I thought you were joking. I made you work some more and stumbled my way through an answer. Of course, the Germans overran my country in 1939. This is easy for me, I said. He smiled and looked less lonely. He took a step towards me and I took a step back. Looked at the book box in the trolley in front of me and found the right Dewey Code for the shelf I was in. Goethe. Faust. Yes. I can remember it even now. Because you looked like you were about to ask me to make some sort of a bargain with you. And I just knew that I would say yes.
Jim Casey couldn't shake his memories off either. He wanted to do one good thing before he died, which is why I looked for our daughter. Someone at the end of a phone line said I'd have to come in for an interview, which I did. Nice lady. Odd name, Brenda, or Mavis, something like that. Common when I was a child. Not now, though. I said so, and she smiled. I thought she'd be on my side. No, she told me. I'm on the side of the adoptee. My interest is the welfare of the child. And I said, yes, of course. Same here. Well, is it? She said, is it? Are you not being selfish? Do you just want to come back into your life? No, not back in, just in. I said, I never knew her. I never saw her. She couldn't understand. I didn't want to explain. But her eyes narrowed when she read the adoption file. Left the birth mother when she was 7 months pregnant, did you? Yes, I said. I'm more sorry than I can possibly say. So, this is some sort of atonement, is it? You want to make up for what you did? No. I didn't think you were supposed to take sides. No, she said. You didn't hear me. I am on the side of the person who was adopted. She is the only one who had no choice in this. Oh no, my turn to disagree. Stefania had no choice. What could she do but have her adopted? I'm glad she did. Who knows what sort of life we'd have had? Who knows indeed, said Mavis, or Brenda.
My mother never knew about the baby. Oh, my father never knew. I don't regret that. It would have been too hard to tell them and then tell them that they'd never see her. Claire Ilona. I regret her not knowing them. I would have liked to have known her, to have advised, loved, but disappointed, held, hoped and wept over her. I'd have liked to have held her hands, to be with her when she went to school, when she left school, earned her first salary, God, made her first million, heard her first concerto, seen her gallery exhibition, made an arrest, had a court judgment, been a mother herself. I'd like to have listened while she laughed. I'd like to have amazed her, made her proud of me. I'd have liked to have sung to her again.
Do you remember we set up the flat bit by bit? An old rug we'd found in a heap in a second-hand carpet place in the Portobello Road. Salvation Army shop gave a couple of chairs to us. A sideboard the landlord didn't want anymore. Fine cut glasses from the antique sales. There was nothing on the junk shop for the neighbours. That was our biggest expense. 2 Viennese lead glasses with gold rims and stars blossoming around the sides. Half a crown the pair. We solemnly drank wine from it as if it was communion every Saturday night. We never got drunk. Played hide and seek in a 2-room flat. If we hid in the shared bathroom, you weren't allowed to lock the door. It was a rule. So you never knew whether there was somebody else in there. You used to pretend you were the landlord's wife and shriek for me to run along, I'll call the police. You had a convincing old lady in distress voice.
I did hear she had lovely parents. I didn't get any pictures, and that's good. That's good. But she knows nothing about me. Maybe something. A little. My name, I hope. That I loved her. I put my photograph in the carry cot with all of the feeding instructions. When I wrote them, I pretended to be a nurse. And I was writing instructions for the next shift. I just couldn't do it as me. Feeds from 5 a.m. every hour till sleep. Leave her to cry and she'll get tired. Play with her when she wakes up, but not before, or she won't sleep. Hide and seek, a soft blanket. Sing something because a lullaby. I sang it in Czech, but I wouldn't expect anybody else to. She isn't mine. And that's the way it should be. I mean, she's got to have a new life, not always needing heating that I can't pay for. I was really surprised when the agency lady said it was time. I thought it was just a health check. Cornflowers filled the room. Oh, it's a funny health check, I said, with all these papers. And for some reason, I said to her, "Oh, did you paint that picture?" And she looked at it, and perhaps she wished she had, but no, she said. It's a print. It reminds me of my holidays. I've seen those before, those cornflowers, I said to her, on a train a year ago. They remind me of the Queen of Prussia. And I handed Claire Ilona over. I passed her over, and felt the weight gone from my hands.
Think about you. But then I stop myself, distract myself, clean my teeth, go walking around the park, do some gardening, just drive and play music at top volume. There's so much I would like to say. Now that I can't, I find myself full of words. 14 years in the same job and the same commute, the same desk, but never the same story. It's a dream, really, surrounded by stories, a new one every day. I try to sound world-weary, not another slush pile. Where do they come from? How many writers are there desperate to be heard? Perhaps it's all the same writer, like Scheherazade, just telling and telling and telling, having no idea what word is going to come out next, not wanting there ever to be an ending. To amuse myself, I wrote stories and snuck them into the pile. That one where I was climbing mountains in the clouds of South America, discovering I'm a drugs mule and not remembering how it happened. Or discovering a family I never knew had been in my basement for decades. I wrote one about a letter with no content, creased and folded into 8 squares, one more than is possible. Inside a faded envelope with an address elegantly written in right slanted, left-handed turquoise ink. But your story, I did not face. Not till the day I discovered you died.
And then there was a new lover. I went to a dance. Some girlfriends at the library, one Polish and the other English. Anna and, oh God, what was her name? She had dark hair, lived in Croydon, really ambitious. Deborah. Yeah, Deborah, that's it. Anyway, they used to take me out. Anna had been there since just before the war, and she had quite a story of her own. Deborah sort of looked after us, told us who to avoid, who was safe. And we danced. T-Rex, Michael Jackson, the Stylistics, anyone. It made a change from Dvorak. It made a change from the flute. Truth be told, I stopped it. All I could think of was playing in our flat, practicing when you were there, seeing you and then not seeing you, sort of knowing deep down what would happen in the end, that I wouldn't be so lucky as to have it all turn out well. When Claire came along, I changed my mind because the world was suddenly so full of brightness. Anyway, Anna, Deborah, and me, we danced and drank, and so I found my lover, Johnny Walker, Gordon's. There's quite a few aliases. He would flatter, fill me with hope and courage, tell me I was special, need me. And I was only too glad to be his partner. He too wanted to live with me, but he was no trouble. He didn't need furniture, didn't need feeding, didn't complain or skulk off. He could always be found. He didn't hide. He didn't get on a bus and vanish. Everywhere there was a bright light, and there he would be. loving me, warming me, just holding me, listening to me, stopped me feeling hungry. And because the three of us were all thrilled to be dancing and drinking, none of us knew that we were in someone else's story. A story as old as the mountains that rose up behind my grandmother's house in Czechoslovakia. I used to gaze at its peaks as a child while my mother told me of demons and angels in tales without end, tales no one had heard. And I was on fire week after week, and I burned with rage, with laughter. When I lost the job at the library, I thought, well, who cares? Books, what are books? I don't need them. They aren't my friend. They don't make me giggle and chatter and sleep. Deborah put up with me for a year or two, but then she met someone and that was that. Anna went the same way that I did, so we found a little maisonette. We did think it was grand. Kitchen in the same room as the living room and the bedroom. All we had to do was pull down the bed and there we were. We were good at finding the next bottle. Just one a day, just one. One a day. I worked at a laundrette, a bookmaker's, a hotel, and a school. School was the one I liked most. I tried not to think of Claire, so all I could do was think of her. And my friend helped, my lover, so I became his.
And now I turn to you. I've met our child and her parents. They're all well. They get on together. Didn't like her father. They called her Fiona. It's not too different to Alona. She looks a little like you. She sings, of course I didn't hear her. She has a photograph of you. She's in work at a recruitment agency. Runs it herself. I think she thinks of you sometimes. She asked a lot of questions about you, not about me. I told her everything I could, everything it would be helpful to say her. I told her you loved her. And I told her you were dead. I told her how you died. She knows I lost touch with you. I gave her my photograph of you. I still don't know whether I did the right thing finding her. It may have caused upset. I wish I had stayed, Stefania. Did you know I saw you once on a bus going south? Did you see me? I think you did. I told Fiona you did. Did you?
It was a long time to be on our own, me and Anna. But we looked after each other. She'd do the shopping and I'd stay in. I didn't like going outside after a while. Our flat, it was all I needed. TV, chess. We play chess, read, drink. We were strict about it at first, not one drink before 7. Then only lunchtime and after 7. Oh, God, everyone drinks, don't they? Keeps the cold out. Anyway, blankets are better than gas fires. She teach me Polish, and I teach her Czech lullabies. We talk about the things we were going to do. And I wanted to write. God, her stories were beautiful. Other worlds. She described them so well. We'd swoop through the clouds to find endless woods and deep blue seas, always facing the sun, never a drop of rain. That was the one I liked best. Just me and her. We'd sing at the top of our voices, and the family downstairs would whack the ceiling. But of course, that only made us do it even more. Council came round one day to warn us. We asked him to join in, gave him a shot of vodka, sat him down, and we told him our dreams. He came back again and again. We'd get him drunk, and then he'd stumble downstairs to tell the neighbours he was doing his best and that he couldn't hear a thing. He was nothing like you. He kept coming back.
I've saved the best till last. I see you all the time. I see you at the checkout, in the Silver Surfers tutor, on TV. I hear you in the voice of a busker or singing into the night when the window is open in the house opposite. I thought it might fade, all that, but it hasn't, and I'm glad. It'll stay that way. Now I've found your child. Of course, it's easy to beg your forgiveness, and I do. But you can't give it to me. It doesn't belong to me, that prize. No more than turning back on the day when I left the flat.
Annie used to say, forget about her. You have to get on with your life. How do you forget about someone? What would be the point? Anna found me on the day I died. She made sure I was taken to hospital, witnessed the certificate. So kind of her. I knew her for longer than either of you. She was my family. We would make sure we were safe. If I was on the floor, she'd put a blanket around me and a cushion under my head. I'd wake up and she would be there, reading to me sometimes from a book of poetry she'd brought with her from Poland. And I'd let the world settle. I'd feel the ground get firm underneath me once again. She'd hold my hand and keep her book in the other. And no, I can't forgive you. When the train crossed the border, in 1968, there was an old couple in the same compartment as me. They just looked at me for hours. I was too shy to say anything, but they looked and looked, and I stared out of the window. They were so close to one another, their arms looped. The woman was smiling. But somewhere over the French border, we stopped at a station that was bursting with cornflowers. Our compartment was filled with their blue light. Flowers were hanging from the platform roof. They were crowded into tubs next to the station exit. filling all of the hanging baskets and bunched in the hands of the children standing in a line facing the train. Magical, the woman said. I looked back at her, and her eyes were filled with tears. Her husband held her hand, and he had the biggest, fattest gold wedding band that I have ever seen. Then he let go of her, stood up, and got off the train. He bought as many bunches of those cornflowers as he could hold and got back on. He gave them all to his wife. She stopped her tears and turned to me, and she held out a bunch of these blue flowers. And as I took it and I murmured my thanks, she said, there is a story that the Queen of Prussia weaved these together to hide her children from Napoleon's armies. I've never heard that before, I said. Take them, she said. Take them, they will never fade, she said. So long as you hope for love, they will never fade. I was 18. And my life had just begun.